Because those are, those cities have had a lot of problems. You remember the ballots in 2010 and Bridgeport. We know about from more recently, and they get beaten down. And it's not always the big cities that have the problems. And here's a problem. We talked about Stratford, and yes, this stuff matters, and I don't mean to, I'm not making light of it, but it is all over. And as the secretary said, it's a human.
It's a human error.
We're still human errors. The question it brings up is, the Republicans were against early voting at 14 days. Does this raise questions about early voting? And I'm turning to you.
I supported early voting.
I know you did. I'm turning to you because
and a bunch of our people did too.
It's not Jimmy, but
no. I mean, here's the thing. Anything new is always people are question, and I understand that. But we sat down. Like the Secretary of State at the time came to the legislature and said, "I want to do early voting in this way," and we were like, okay, we had two choices. We either sit down and discuss a way that we think it can work, because you want people to understand and feel comfortable with having a fair process and that it's being done in a safe and secure way. So we came up with a plan to do it in a way that was the safest way possible, not in the way she originally wanted to do it, which I don't remember what, but it was, basically kind of Katie bar the door, do it as long as you want, whatever you want. And, we narrowed it down, and there are parameters, and it took several years before this went into play. That's why it's a little shocking to me that something like that could have gone wrong.
Because there were so many safeguards put in place.
But if something is going to go wrong, it should be a black and white thing like that, right?
Where you can then have a challenge and fix it.
You know it happened. There's no question that it happened. It's going to be remedied the way it's going to be remedied. It's not about you think it was wrong, you didn't think it was wrong, I wasn't sure, right? Because that's what gains trust, when there's always going to be problems, but as long as we have, the mechanisms to catch them and fix them.
Yes, transparency is huge, and we want to go out right now to Owen Kingsley, who has been covering the Secretary of the State tonight. And Owen, we were just talking about with our panelists about the issue of the 1,000 votes in North Stonington, where the envelopes weren't signed, and now there's an issue with those. But as you have been covering the Secretary of the State, what have been the big themes? I know early voting and a big turnout has been something we've been talking about.
No, that's absolutely true, and I'll touch on the North Stonington situation in just a moment, but quickly to get out of the way, the Secretary obviously touting a very smooth election day today as far as how things operated at Connecticut polls today. So what we know is we've been hearing throughout the day in several different areas of long lines for those looking to register to vote today. That's because at least 15,000 people participated in same-day registration. We understand that caused some lines in various areas throughout the state. As far as what we are knowing moving forward, so polls closed 8 o'clock tonight. Those votes through tabulators are going to be due tonight at 11:59, and by Friday at 9 a.m. local town clerks and city clerks, they're going to have to be able to certify their town and city municipal votes by 9 a.m. on Friday. Now, North Stonington was a big situation that the Secretary talked about. As we know, more than 1,100 of those votes were potentially, more than 1,100 votes were not signed. Now, as of 8 p.m., when those polls closed, when the Secretary talked to us at the Capitol building behind us, she told us that nearly 1,000 of those voters confirmed came back in, filled out a ballot, and signed it. So there's somewhere between the numbers that we've been given, between 100 and 200 ballots that could be affected. We don't know that exact number as of right now. And as we understand it, the Secretary was saying that she was sort of downplaying the potential problem at stake as of right now. She's not heard of any lawsuits that have been filed against the state over this situation, and we just simply tonight won't know exactly how many ballots. She said she believes that the number of people whose votes were not certified as of the end of the day today, she believes could have been voters who knew they had signed their ballots and knew that they were already valid. We'll continue gathering those updates. We'll have more of what the Secretary had to say coming up later tonight. For now, live in Hartford, I'm Owen Kingsley, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Owen, thank you. And now, for the first time, we're going to the 3rd Congressional District. Longtime Democratic Representative Rosa DeLauro is facing off against Republican Michael Massey. Channel 3's Hector Molina has been following this race all day and is joining us with more on that now. Hector.
Hi, Hi there, Kara. Yeah, we're live here at the Schubert Theater in New Haven. Election nights are nothing new for Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. She's been in Congress since 1991. That's longer than how old some of the people here are, myself included. But let's see here. Hundreds of people here at the Schubert Theater having some drinks, food, and energy is very high, very confident in tonight's election. Let's go in here to some more of the support crowd. A lot of people here supporting Rosa DeLauro, including this man right here to my right, Mike Song, the father of Ethan Song, and a key advocate for Ethan's Law, one of the strict gun control laws here in Connecticut. Mike, you're obviously a key supporter of Rosa DeLauro. Speaking with her team, how's she feeling tonight?
Well, I think people are pumped up. Are we ready to win? Are we ready to win? Pumped up. People love Rosa. I mean, people love Rosa. She's everywhere, and she's helped us so much with Ethan's Law down in D.C. She's relentless and always advocating for Connecticut, Connecticut businesses, Connecticut citizens, Connecticut people, Connecticut women, and I'm 1,000% behind her. She's helped our family get through a crisis by affecting real change, and of course the state of Connecticut has been amazing as well in whole. All of our representatives have supported Ethan's Law, which passed here with strong bipartisan support. And what does that show you? It shows you that we can come together, even as divided as we are. And Rosa's always looking to reach across the aisle.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mike. It was great talking to you.
It's great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, her opponent, Michael Massey, his focus, a lot of energy here. This is quite the party to be. Now, we spoke with Michael Massey earlier tonight. His focus is on supporting struggling families in urban communities. We tried to get him on camera, but he denied to speak with us. That's the latest here in New Haven tonight. Hector Molina, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
Okay, Hector, thank you so much. A lot of energy there. Well, let's move on to the 4th Congressional District. Representative Jim Himes is being opposed by Republican Michael Goldstein. That district covers the southwestern portion of our state. I want to show you a look at any results that we might have there right now coming in. Doesn't look like we have too much, but we've got 58% right now for Jim Himes, 40% for Michael Goldstein, and 2% for the independent candidate, Benjamin Wesley. As a reminder, you can find election results as they come in right on the WFSB app, and that is the QR code to download it. And of course, if you're watching us, you know you can watch right here on WFSB Plus, the app, or just the Wax. If you have one of those nifty voice remotes, just say the Wax. You can watch us on your election party. All eyes are on Pennsylvania tonight. That is shaping up to be one of the most contentious battlegrounds in the country. They call it the path to the White House. Joining us now from Philadelphia is Molly Martinez. Molly, we have seen both of the candidates spend tremendous amounts of time in the Keystone State. Why is it so important, and what are you seeing there now?
Kara, this is really the big fish of the swing states. There are 19 electoral votes up for grabs. Pennsylvania went to Donald Trump in 2016. It went to Joe Biden in 2020. And right now it is a virtual toss-up. So the ball is loose, and both sides need it. You just said something very key here. The keys to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue go through Pennsylvania Commonwealth. And the candidates know that. As you mentioned, they have spent tremendous time and resource here in the Keystone State. Kamala Harris had 4 separate events yesterday as her last day on the campaign trail. Donald Trump had 2. So they know the value of the Keystone State. They know how important it is in securing the White House.
Yeah, and you know, we've got slow states and we've got fast states. I know we all want to know about Pennsylvania, but you are in a slow state with some unique rules around counting the ballots. Can you explain that for us and what it's going to mean as we await results?
Yes, so before we get to that, I just want to say there have been a couple glitches today. One was in Cambria County. They were having some issues with the scanning of their ballots, and so they extended voting hours by 2 hours. So polls will close in Cambria County at 10 p.m. tonight. But Pennsylvania has this law in which they cannot begin counting mail-in ballots until polls close. So according to the University of Florida Election Lab, about 1.8 million Pennsylvanians cast ballots as of Sunday. But those can be ready to go, but they cannot be counted until polls close. So already there's a huge backlog even before polls close. Once polls close, poll workers are inundated with that counting process. So it is unlikely, like you said, a slow state, that we're going to get any definitive answers tonight unless it is a blowout. But this is looking like it's going to be much more of a photo finish.
Okay. Molly Martinez, you are in the eye of the storm, so to speak. Thank you for joining us from Philadelphia. I know we'll be checking back in with you throughout the evening. In the meantime, our team coverage continues back here in our state. Voters did have the chance to vote on, with no excuse, absentee voting. Channel 3 Eyewitness News reporter Leah Red is joining us live now to break down the latest on the only statewide ballot question. Aaliyah.
Well, Kara, the polls closed about an hour ago, and I've been tracking the results, and here are the live results that we are seeing right now as they come in. And last checked, over 20,000 people voted yes, and about 15,000 have voted against the amendment. Now, if this does pass, it would allow for the state legislature to pass a law allowing for all residents to vote through mail-in ballots. And right now, you can only vote through mail-in ballots if you're on active duty, you're sick, disabled, or for a religious reason that prevents a person from getting to the polls. Now, again, right now, about 20,000 have voted yes, and over 15,000 have said no. Now, statewide absentee ballots, it's something that, honestly, a lot of people are looking to have approved. I was speaking to people out today in Deep River and Portland, and they were saying, you know what, it would be so helpful if they were able to just mail in ballots. And coming up a little bit later on the wax, I'm going to speak a little bit about other issues that people in Deep River and Portland were able to vote on. For now, Kara, back to you.
Aaliyah, thank you, and we'll watch those numbers as they come in. And coming up a little bit later on the wax and WFSB Plus, more specific towns, like Aaliyah said, about Portland, Deep River, the ballot questions, and we'll talk about that as we continue the evening. Right now, I want to go out to Brian Shackman, who is watching a multitude of races from WTIC Radio as he does election night coverage. Brian, what are you seeing and hearing that you think is making a difference right now?
Well, I mean, obviously in Connecticut, the races, called for the White House. Senator Murphy was already called. I mean, it's just not a lot of drama outside of the fifth. And the real question with the people we're talking to across the country is that will we know tonight? I mean, it's a big debate. And I know you just talked to Pennsylvania recently, but we've talked to people in both Pennsylvania and we've gone to other states. And basically the thought is Pennsylvania, they can count votes faster than they did in the last election, and there's a chance we might know sooner. The feeling is if Pennsylvania breaks for Trump, it could be game over for Harris, whereas like in Georgia or North Carolina, if one of those two states breaks for Harris, that could be a huge thing for her campaign. And locally, we talked a little bit about the Murphy, Matthew Corey. It's just to have $10 million more. He's such a professional politician. The debate really showed that. And, Matthew Corey has some good policies to run on, but he didn't have the money and he didn't have the exposure, or even after running for office several times, just didn't have the name recognition. So they called it with like 0% reporting. But right now, the real debate we're having is, are we going to be working overnight, or are we going to know before we go to bed? And right now, some people think there's a better chance than maybe they thought 6 or 8 hours ago that they might know something decisive in the presidential race tonight. I mean, I don't know if I feel that way. I think it's going to take longer, but that's what some of the people we're talking to.
Interesting. Well, our analysts here all said, no, they're up all night. Nobody's sleeping. So
nobody.
Brian, thank you. And after months of campaigning by Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, it does all come down to tonight, even if we don't know tonight. Joining us, though, to talk about the view from the vice president's election headquarters in Washington is Channel 3's White House correspondent, John Decker. John, we know she's at her alma mater right now. What is the mood with the Harris campaign? Are you seeing confidence?
I would describe it as cautious optimism. They believe they have a path to get to 270, the easiest path, winning those blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. We know that Pennsylvania, Michigan polls have already closed. They like the way the turnout has gone in both of those states, so they believe they're on their way, but they're also cautious, knowing full well that all the polls before tonight's election indicated it was essentially a toss-up in each and every one of the swing states.
I know you've been covering elections since Bill Clinton was president. I was an intern in that White House. What are you going to be watching for as the results come in the next couple of hours?
Yeah, I'm watching North Carolina really closely. North Carolina is a state that Donald Trump won in both 2016 and 2020. It was the state that he won by the narrowest of margins in 2020. It's a state he should have in his column, but he visited the state 3 times in 3 days, on Saturday, on Sunday, and yesterday, which indicates he hasn't locked that state up just yet. So I'm watching that state in particular to see if Donald Trump can lock that down. That's important for him in terms of getting to 270 electoral college votes.
John, thank you so much. We can hear a lot of music, a lot of people, I think, having fun until the results come in.
That's right.
We'll be checking back in with you as we can throughout the night. John Decker, our White House correspondent. Want to bring back to this studio with our team coverage, and Channel 3 is your campaign 2024 election authority. They definitely have some music out there. Let's check in with Channel 3's Stephanie Simone. She's at the campaign 2024 desk. It's a little quieter where you are, Stephanie, but you have the technology.
Yeah, we got all the tech, no music. We're not bouncing here hard, but we do have some really cool numbers. All right, so this is New Mexico. The only reason why I pulled this up is because numbers are just coming in from New Mexico. Very small numbers, just 1.6%, but let's get out of this and let's take a look at the whole map. Some of the numbers are starting to fill in. Still very early, though, but you can see they need 270 to win, the presidential candidates. Right now, Donald Trump has 177, Vice President Kamala Harris, 99. Still a lot of time. I want to bring in our presidential historian, Tom Belser. He's a professor at Eastern Connecticut State University. Thanks for being here. Let's take a look at this map together. So last time we were on, Illinois just got called. All the dark blue you see, that is what has been called for Vice President Kamala Harris. When you look at all the dark red, that's everything that has been called for Donald Trump. And then when you take those away, you kind of see how the map is leaning. What does white mean? What are we?
Toss-up, I think.
Okay, yes, it means toss-up. It means it's kind of a stalemate. We don't know. And Virginia is very interesting. We were narrowing in on those D.C. suburbs, seeing what the turnout looked like. Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax. These are the numbers that are very interesting for, that's what Vice President Kamala Harris, her campaign, will be looking at very closely.
Yes,
and why
you're right.
is that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the population center of Virginia. Virginia's population has changed in the last several presidential cycles. It's become a more reliable Democratic state, and it's because of the growth in these D.C. suburbs. You were clicking on them. Again, Alexandria and Arlington are the 2 large ones, but so is Fairfax. Loudoun County is another one to watch. The breakdown here is about what we expected as well. But if this trend continues in this area, it will bode well for Vice President Harris.
All right, let's take a look at Georgia right now, because that is leaning right now for Donald Trump. And you can see that 69% of the votes are in. So, and when you see this 2020 button down here, it just tells us, if we press it, that it went Democratic in the last. So President Joe Biden took this in 2020. We don't know how it'll go this time, but right now, former President Donald Trump is up by 200,000 votes. So we will closely watch Georgia. I want to bring in, we were supposed to talk about the balance of power, because this is very interesting. It is neck and neck in the Senate right now. Jim Justice took West Virginia. What does that mean? Let's talk about the balance of power in the Senate right now.
Well, I'll say this. I know this is the presidential map, but in many ways, it actually reflects some of the same trends. Jim Justice win in a place where we had previously an independent, although he caucused more with, now we see the map here, with the Democrats. That was Joe Manchin. It really is just now a much narrower path for Democrats to keep that balance of power. It's very unlikely, in fact, at this point. This is the one they had to win to be sure they'd have a chance at the balance of power. But for Republicans, they're very happy, I'm sure, right now with Justice's victory. It looks like a much easier path toward the Senate majority.
All right. It looks like Republicans are happy, obviously, with that Jim Justice win. Still too early to tell with the presidential race. Thank you so much. We will be with Tom Belser, our presidential historian, all night as we watch this map fill in and those votes come in. Kara.
Stephanie, thanks. I want to move it to Fairfield, to our Senate race, with the race with Wong right now. You've said he's really been polling in an impressive way that might indicate some things. Can we talk about that? Let's start with, you want to start with you, Dan, and then we'll move on to what it means?
The numbers in Republican headquarters down there from our guy, Jared Wardwell, for CT Insider, is reporting, and that Tony Wong is actually outpolling by 2,500 votes with 7,600 votes. But more importantly, he's got more votes than any of the top of the ticket candidates, Himes, Harris, or Hayes. So that's in that district, he's got more votes.
What does that mean when you're looking at that, Themis?
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, all our numbers are consistent with what's going on there. I mean, Tony Wong is a hard campaigner. Tony Wong spends all his time committed to his district, and you know there are some people that like him and some people that don't, but he's everywhere all the time. And so, I mean, I think that we talk about pockets in Connecticut, and that was one of the targets for the Republicans and the Democrats. It was looked at as a risky seat that we had, and the Democrats were certainly targeting it. And Rob Blanchard was a person that worked for Governor Lamont.
Yeah.
You know, but he's doing well, and so that's, I think, you know, that will affect Johanna Hayes and George Logan too, because that's part of their district.
Right, it's an interesting district because it's partly in the 4th Congressional District, partly in the 5th Congressional District. And 2 years ago, Tony Wong won by about 600 votes. So a lot thought going into this, if Rob Blanchard could tighten it up, you know, he really might be well on his way to having an upset. But based on the information we're getting, it's...
However, it is just the machine count. This is just the machine
count. Right, we still have the early vote still coming in, which was sizable in this community.
Right.
But very interesting. I do, time-wise, need to get to Cassidy, who has been covering the complaints at the polls. Cassidy, tell us what you know so far.
Yeah, we've been monitoring the emails that have been coming into the newsroom all day, and we've seen kind of 2 main issues that we've been following. But overall, the Secretary of State says it's been a smooth election day. The first issue we're taking note of is issues with voting machines. We've confirmed reports of this in Torrington, Meriden, Ansonia, South Windsor, and Colchester. In each case, we're told the machine was fixed and all ballots were counted. When a machine goes down, the ballots go in an auxiliary box. In the meantime, the second main issue we've been hearing about is delays with same-day voter registration. We've heard reports of people having to wait several hours to register. The Secretary of State says she's been monitoring this as well. Anyone who got in line before 8 p.m. will have the opportunity to vote tonight. It is possible people are still in line voting as long as they got in line before 8 p.m. We have crews out monitoring both of these issues as polls lines start to wind down. Kara.
Cassidy, thanks. We just, as we're talking about some of the problems, I want to, before we have to take a quick break, Dan, you've got some projections coming in from CT Insider in the 5th right now.
I wouldn't, oh no, this isn't the 5th. This is in the Blanchard long race. And this isn't a projection, but what we're seeing is as the numbers come in, Senator Wong's lead is holding up right now, 85-55 to 59-55.
Okay.
So, and that again is without absentee ballots or early voting, which is a big deal because Democrats overvoted in those. So we're not, nobody's anywhere yet, but those are, his lead is holding up as the night progresses.
Okay. We will continue to watch that. We do have to take a quick break right now, but we'll be checking back in with Mark and Arian in the studio and with more projections and calls just ahead. Stay with us.